Weirdly enough, I was more upset by the cheating on the spouses than the incest. But shit man, you do. Except for opinions of other people, there's only one real drawback of incest, and that's genetically messed up kids. Since you're shooting blanks, that's all figured out. Be happy. Last year's I started to engage sexually with my first cousin. She was 16, I was 17. At first, we just made out, but it slowly progressed to handjobs from her and fingering from me. Soon, she was giving me blowjobs, and well, we wanted to do more, but we couldn't find a way to do it without getting noticed. This year though, we worked it out and managed to do it. We did it 2 times while we were drunk. I can't say I disliked it or I feel guilty or anything. It is amazing. We are both horny as fuck. She's hot and thinks I'm hot as well. I only see her once or twice a year, but I always look forward to it. I don't give a shit. I've never actually engaged in incest, but got pretty close obliviously. I was maybe 12 or younger. Like, I was a child, and we'd usually go further south to my grandma's house to stay a couple of weeks while my parents did whatever they did. This was my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. So rednecks. I have a cousin who used to live next to my grandma's house, and she'd come over occasionally to play with us. She was a couple of years older. She would always try to wrestle with me, and take me into the woods, or a bedroom alone. I was completely oblivious to what she was trying to do, and wouldn't go into the woods with her because I was afraid of bobcats and snakes. She never got to do anything to me, because my grandma is awesome, and a pretty keen lady. Though, when we wrestled, she usually got to pin me in an awkward position that I'd feel uncomfortable in. If I would have known what she was going for, I honestly might have accepted it out of curiosity, but I definitely end up regretting it. I let my cousin fuck me from the age of about 12 until we were both 17. We were always playmates as babies, and when we started going through puberty, I guess he saw how lonely I was and we were both horny. It was super awkward the first time it happened, but after it started it was a constant nightly thing when we were together. I am thankful for the experience because it was hard growing up an only child, and he made it a little easier. I had sex with my cousin when we were both 17. It was consensual and there were never any guilty feelings from either side. We only had sex the one time, but I think it was because we both fell into long-term relationships shortly after we slept together. Our relationship never changed after we slept together. This was over 20 years ago, and we still talk on a pretty regular basis with no weirdness. I posted this in another question before and I'm too lazy to rewrite it all. So here it is. When I was 15, my younger brother and I lived in an almost psychotically sheltered home. We bounced around foster homes a lot, but this was by far the most restrictive. Our foster parents were incredibly religious and overprotective. They never had kids of their own, so they didn't really know how to parent. I guess it was clear that they cared about us deeply, and they didn't intend to hurt us or make our lives difficult. That much was obvious. They were just misguided. They homeschooled us and kept us home almost 100% of the time. We rarely got any outside interaction except when friends of theirs would bring their children over to visit. It was brutal on our mental state. Both he and I went for months without any sexual release and barely any contact with the opposite sex outside of each other. Eventually I couldn't take it anymore, so I went to the bathroom to masturbate in the early hours of the morning when I was sure our foster parents were asleep. And apparently my brother had the same idea. We were both extremely sexually frustrated, and I couldn't take it anymore. Although it was consensual, at the time I kind of felt that I forced him into having sex with me. He was hesitant, since he didn't want me to regret it in the future, but I insisted, so he accepted. I'm counting step-siblings. It just sort of happened. Our parents got married and a couple years later we still hadn't developed a family bond of any sort. Still haven't. It started when her friend was over and had a huge crush on me, so they crash in on me when I'm just relaxing in the hot tub. We also had a pool and it was late fall, so it was super cold. So a dare happened to switch back and forth between the pool and hot tub. This started a game of truth or dare and things got a bit sexual. Stuff like being naked in the bubbles of the hot tub, but we couldn't see anything, Then stuff like sitting on my lap and whatnot. Nothing more happened that night, but a couple days later we are both in the hot tub and start daring again. Things start to go the way they went before, but again nothing. My mom and her dad went to sleep super early so we could really do this whenever. The dare started happening out of the hot tub and in the woods, and from there it began to escalate. I dare you to jerk off, or I dare you to take all your clothes off. It just kept escalating until we just sort of grinded on each other. We were both 13 until we both came. That happened a few more times because neither of us could get a condom, and then I stayed at my dad's all summer and we stopped doing that stuff. We never mentioned it to anybody, and as far as each of us know, the other has forgotten all about it. TL. Doctor, it escalated slowly. One of my cousins was in this position. Him and his stepsister actually ended up dating for like 5 years, longer than their parents were married. When their parents split, they were both around 17, and at this point their parents had come to accept it. They were shacking up when they all lived together, so they ended up having a shared bedroom at her dad's house and his mom's, and they kinda went back and forth till they got their own place. I don't really know the story as to why they fell apart, but I was pretty surprised when I found out. When I was younger, everyone used to make jokes about how he was gonna marry his sister, but we all knew they really did love each other. My cousin now has a beautiful wife and 2 kids, and he's an overall great guy, involved with his church, coaches his son's baseball team, all that jazz. But he still used to fuck his sister. I don't see anything too wrong with his. If you're not blood related, then whatever, right? Sometimes it's a double standard. It's weird if parents get married but step-siblings do something sexual, but there's been TV show scenarios where the guy and his girlfriend's parents become a couple after meeting each other, and although awkward, it's more acceptable. PSH. No genetic ties. It's fine in my book. Nobody will ever read this, but whatever. From the age of 14, my older sister 16 and I had to share a bed. We weren't rich. 2-bedroom house with 4 of us. Just after I joined secondary school, my sister started to masturbate me when I was asleep. Started off with basic things like her feeling my dick while I was asleep, putting her hands down my trousers and just feeling my dick, etc. Of course she thought I was sleeping. This went on for about 7-8 months until one day we got into a fight and I told her I'll tell my dad what she does. She denied it. At that point it kinda stopped. Then I started to try and initiate it by touching her. Cut the long story short, it became normal for us and we ended up giving each other oral sex until she moved out at 22. We're very touchy-feely with each other. We never had sex, but I always fantasize about this now. I can't fucking stop it. Kinda related. My cousin and I were about 6 years old on holiday in caravans. Our parents were outside and we were in my caravan with my brother. I can't remember exactly how it started, but somehow I was lying down on a seat with her straddling me and kissing me. I did it because she was good looking and apparently she thought I was too, and we were too young to care that we were related. My brother said we were in a lot of trouble, but I don't remember that. I just remember seeing my mom looking in the window and panicking. I don't know if that's changed my life or if I was going to be a little fucked up anyway. I've never actually engaged in incest, but got pretty close obliviously. I was maybe 12, or younger. Like, I was a child, and we'd usually go further south to my grandma's house to stay a couple of weeks while my parents did whatever they did. This was my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. So rednecks. I have a cousin who used to live next to my grandma's house, and she'd come over occasionally to play with us. She was a couple of years older. In high school. She would always try to wrestle with me, and take me into the woods, or a bedroom alone. I was completely oblivious to what she was trying to do, and wouldn't go into the woods with her because I was afraid of bobcats and snakes. She never got to do anything to me, because my grandma is awesome, and a pretty keen lady even to this day. Though, when we wrestled, she usually got to pin me in an awkward position that I'd feel uncomfortable in. If I would have known what she was going for, I honestly might have accepted it. Maybe a kiss at most out of curiosity, but I definitely end up regretting it. Okay, so 2 years ago-ish, my best friend hooked me up with her friend who was in a lot of my classes, so I knew her a bit well since I basically knew everyone. We all were planning a double date basically, and that was in like 2 weeks. The 3 of us hung out numerous times and she'd always try to hold my hand or come onto me. I always jerked away because it always felt weird and I had no idea why, I just figured it's because I'm awkward and never really been in a relationship. This kept going and I just decided to end it because I wasn't comfortable. A week later she's taking pictures of my other cousin on my dad's side who I don't know that well because he kind of abandoned my mom and I am in and out of jail all the time. Turns out, she knew the whole time we were cousins and thought I knew too. I guess my weird instincts were right. Welcome to Indiana. Also sorry for fucked up paragraphs on mobile and still getting used to it. I never thought I would get to share this. I didn't do it, but I have a story regarding this. A day after our prom ended, many of our classmates, imagine 2/5 of the batch, met the next day at a friend's home. The house was quite big and we partied hard until we reached the bed of the night. We all were playing a game where we would draw out 2 names from the bowl and both of them had to make out inside a spare guest room, and most of these cases ended up full-blown sex. This was the last round we played. Most of us were drunk. We pulled out 2 names. They turned out to be brother and sister. Now, being big idiots and pretty much assholes, we started to chant for them to make out and started to push them into the guest room. We were just joking and they just played along with it. So we locked them in and waited 5 to 10 minutes, then opened the door to end the round. We expected them to be angry and just sitting there to open the door. Instead, the brother was balls deep, instead her sister. It was the most gross thing you could ever see in your lifetime. Both of them quickly ran out of the house. Later we came to know that it was a first-time event and heat of the moment situation. I met a friend last year who told me nobody their family knows nothing happened between them and it's turned very awkward between them. When I first read this I thought you meant actually getting engaged to someone you're related to. But keeping it serious, I made out with my cousin once when I was like 5, she was like 11 or something. Nothing ever happened with it. Also, I told my younger brother a few months ago and he said she did the same thing to him, so there's also that. I didn't willingly engage in incest, but my brother did. When I was about 8 years old, female, and my brother was about 13. He would eat me out when he thought I was asleep on the couch or when we would hang out in his room while he played video games and I watched. This lasted for about 3 years. I didn't really know that it was bad since I was a child, so I let him do it, but it definitely felt weird. When I was in school though, health teachers would talk to the class about sexual abuse and that if someone was touching you in places you didn't want to be touched, you should tell someone. I still thought that it was okay. I never did anything to him though. And I don't like when he touches me now, and I don't like wearing pajamas that don't cover everything when I'm around him. We're both out of the house now. I'm in college. He's living in an apartment working as a manager at Target. I had serious commitment issues during relationships for a while. I did not want to have someone eat me out for a long time, and if I have a male gynecologist I start crying. So yeah, it definitely changed my life to a negative degree. I repeatedly had sex with my male cousin. I'm a male. It started when we were like 13 and ended when we were 15 and I moved. It wasn't really sex. We jerked each other off and at the beginning I used to come after like 2 minutes and just leave him hanging. I would just give him blue balls every time. Lol. As he the dominant one, he always wanted to fuck me but I was too scared it'd hurt, so I clenched my ass higher. Also used to feel guilty as fuck, not because he was my cousin, but because no gay stuff. All my stupid aunts, grandmas, my mom, they all are very Catholic, therefore, homophobic. We have a big backyard, trees, a fountain, and a shed all the way at the back, so I used to go behind the shed with my guinea pig and cry because I was 13 and I was going to hell BC I was gay. Obviously that didn't stop me the next time I saw my cousin lol. I have since then accepted that I'm bisexual, my sister is gay, my drunk aunt is gay. So I guess we bout to create some family drama hiya. Nobody will ever read this but whatever. From the age of 14, my older sister 16 and I had to share a bed. We weren't rich. 2-bedroom house with 4 of us. Just after I joined secondary school my sister started to masturbate me when I was asleep. Started off with basic things like her feeling my dick while I was asleep, putting her hands down my trousers and just feeling my dick, etc. Of course she thought I was sleeping. This went on for about 7-8 months until one day we got into a fight and I told her I'll tell my dad what she does. She denied it. At that point it kinda stopped. Then I started to try and initiate it by touching her. Cut the long story short, it became normal for us and we ended up giving each other oral sex until she moved out at 22. We're very touchy-feely with each other. We never had sex, But I always fantasize about this now. I can't fucking stop it. Yes, we slept together twice in the months running up to her 16th birthday. Legal age of consent here is 16. And once again after she turned 16, which is what I was caught for. I was 24, but deeply immature and inexperienced. I was so preoccupied with who she was. It was a total mindfuck knowing she was my half-sister, that I didn't think of her age at the time. She was far more mature and experienced than I was in many ways, and I certainly didn't think of her as a child. My girlfriend has a mild crush on her brother. I realized it at some point, and since we are quite into roleplay and BDSM, I've been fucking her for almost a year while she screams her brother's name, and she really likes it. Not just fantasy. I've talked to her about it outside sex, and she really likes her brother and would fuck him given the chance. Her brother is hot as fuck, 2 years younger than we are, and he is the typical gay guy, completely blind to his own gay side. He has a girlfriend and everything. Every time he acts manly, my girlfriend gets wet, but most of the time she can handle it by looking at him like a gay guy. I've been trying to push her to show more of her body when he is around and to test the ground, but without luck. She still sees a gay guy and that relaxes her.